Hello, welcome everyone to another episode of the Virtual Ninja Show. Today we are going to talk about CISOs and why Copilot for security is important for them as well. And I couldn't have asked for a better expert for me on the show. Benjamin, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Benjamin Powell. I'm the Senior Product Marketing Manager here at Microsoft. I'm a certified ethical hacker. I've worked in IT for over 37 years. Half of my time has been with startups and with companies that create security products. And I'm excited to be here.
Yes, me too. And we know each other from our internal trainings. And I always know that you also bring exciting demos with you. So I can't wait for that one. So Benjamin, usually, when we talk about Copilot for security, it's about helping security analysts get faster with incident response and finding things that they are looking for. So how comes we are talking about CISOs today?
So when I looked at what we've created here at Microsoft, we're looking at security operations, IT operations, device management, identity management, data protection, and cloud security. Each of these practitioners, when they use the products, they ask questions to get information to make them more effective or to understand the environment more. And I tried to think, well, CISOs are asking all of the people in their organizations these similar types of questions. Could the CISO go directly into Copilot and ask those questions and get information back that could help them in their day-to-day job and potentially even help them to increase the understanding of the organization and reduce the time it takes to really make an educated decision on what to do?
Yes, and they also want, first of all, they like tools to play with, to work with and play with. And of course, to get quick an answer, that might be a little bit more complex to otherwise go through the different systems. But we go into a couple of those questions before. So can we quickly summarize why Copilot for security is such an important tool for them and what is behind it?
Sure. So the reason why Copilot for security is so important is because it's been trained to act like a security professional, to help IT operations and SOC operators to be able to go and understand the environment from their perspective, but then also to bridge that gap, to take somebody that's at maybe a junior level and make them elevated to function at a higher level with the confidence to be able to ask questions and get a response that's catered to security. Mm-hmm. And so that's why it's so important. And it's tied into threat protection and cloud security, data security, compliance and privacy, identity and management, and all of the Microsoft products that help an organization from zero trust to all of these other types of environments to give you that perspective where when you ask the question, it goes out with the proper context, with the security in mind, to give you that information so you can really be educated on what a threat is or where your risk and exposure is and what to do with that.
So Benjamin, you explained a little bit the different products. It's sometimes often a different person as well, right? So caring about information protection might be someone different than looking into email protection. So right. Do they have different ways of working, engaging with the products?
Yeah, when you look at security operations, they're enhancing threat management. They're speeding up their incident response. And sometimes it's through a guided investigation. Other times it's through an analysis, like analyzing the script, understanding what's happening inside of those scripts so you can understand the full extent of the attack. Now, from the device management, it's not only looking at compliance, but then maybe audit activity that happens on the device. What was installed, what ran, what processes are there. From the identity management, it's not only looking at your identity internal, but also external on the cloud and understanding if maybe permissions have changed or conditional access. So all of that information is so important, not only from a data and compliance perspective to know what data was touched or downloaded or changed. It's really important to understand also what goes out. So like if somebody is trying to write code and they're using Chat GPT instead of the sanctioned AI for the organization, is there a bleeding of information outside? Now, from the cloud perspective, It's important to understand, cloud protections. Like, for example, if somebody is going out there and taking a credential that was taken internally and externally accessing that cloud outside the environment, can you see it? Can you understand it? Are there any protections to stop that in place? And Copilot allows us to tie into all of the different products and services and bring it into a cohesive way for you to ask those questions to really speed up your investigation and understanding of the context of the attacks or threats that facing you.
So we don't want the CISO to not speak to their people anymore, but I mean, they can use Copilot for security to bring context from the different areas now together for a question that they might have. Is that correct?
So if someone came to the CISO and said, we had this human operated ransomware attack, for example, the CISO might say, okay, explain what happened in the attack. Who was involved? What data was touched? Was there a script that was involved? Who was behind the attack? So these are the questions that the CISO might ask that they might be able to do directly in an application now to give them some additional information. So now that they have those base level of understanding, they can go deeper and say, can you explain this more? What protections do we have in place for this particular piece? Are there any other openings in our risk and exposure that we might need to understand to prevent, further incursions into our organization? So ultimately, we're allowing the CISO to operate like a team member and to be able to interact with these tools without having to have the direct training and knowledge to operate the tools. So Copilot allows you to ask questions and get expert advice back without having to be an expert in the tool.
Okay.
That's the ground laying foundation that this allows the CISO to operate at.
Yeah. I think we are ready to look into what are some of these questions that a CISO can ask Copilot for security, Benjamin. I'm super excited. Let's go into the demo.
Heike, what I want to try to show you now is that a CISO might ask questions. So this could be a CISO that is new to an organization or one that's been there for a long time. Now, the first question that they might want to understand is, are we prepared? How are we doing? They want to understand from Defender, in the instance that they're seeing inside of Defender, how are they doing? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask that question here of Copilot, and let's see what happens.
Oh, wow. Who put that nice smiley in there?
So part of Copilot is they have these Easter eggs and different things that show up. And this is one of them that shows up in here.
Nice.
Now, the really nice thing about Copilot is it gives us not only the information, but where the information came from. So with responsible AI, it's really important to make sure that the information that comes back, you view it and you make sure that it's also accurate. You can't just trust everything. You have to trust but verify. So it gives you the ability to know where the information came from, how that got rendered, and that you can look at it and go, yes, that makes sense. And I can see the sources of where it came from. If you need to verify, you can verify. Now, inside of here, I'm looking at the information about this question. And it went through and it asked what instance that we have into the system and what occurred here. Now, one thing is that in terms of preparedness, the active status of these incidents suggests that the security team is aware and is likely taking steps to address these steps. However, a high severity of some incidents indicates significant threats that require immediate attention and a robust security measures.
Wow.
It's letting you know that, hey, your team's working, but there might be some things that you might need to really investigate and understand further. So what I wanted to do was to create a bulleted list of the top 20 things, incidents that were occurring by the people that are actually doing the work.
But this is like, before you go to the next one, Benjamin, I think that result is so powerful. I mean, I don't want to see the 2,630 incidents. I'm like, oh my goodness, there's a lot going on. But the summary, and then also explained there is high severity alerts. It might that they might need to have some immediate attention. as well as preparation. I think I've not seen this, because usually we go into incidents, we
Right.
ask for IP addresses, for other things that are related to that an incident. But yeah, wow.
I
Okay.
was pleasantly surprised. It
Yeah.
wowed me. Some of the things that you're going to see, I didn't think were possible. But I asked the questions, and when you ask these questions, there's some finesse that we have to do. You ask the question, get some results. You might go back and edit the question and reword it slightly different, or add some additional parameters to get additional information. But the nice thing about this is that as we're asking these questions, the system is learning. It's gathering the information and gaining context. So then when you ask further questions or information about what it's already brought back, it can answer with that context in mind. That's the orchestration of knowing what skill to run, which plugin to run, and to grab that information is like having those staff members in the room with you with direct knowledge of everything that's happening in the environment.
Wow. And nobody can have that on top of their
No,
mind. Like,
no,
that's
no.
no.
So like if I ask, okay, for over the last 30 days, what are all the incidents that you worked on? And to my team, they're going to tell you maybe one or two. They're not going to know all of them. And if I tell them, which ones are open or closed, they might not know. But the nice thing about this is that as I go through and do this, I can see the different analysts listed and which things that they worked on. Okay. So one thing might be, let's go look at Defender instance for the last 90 days for one person. And let me know which ones are open, closed, or resolved to see how they're doing. Is everything open? Is everything closed? What's that percentage? What's happening there? So from looking at one of my analysts, I get an understanding of what their last 90 days are like. And with that, I can see all these instances. So the next question might be, well, I want to know, are we improving or not? Well, how are we doing? How many of these get resolved? How long does it take to understand, how well my team members are working? Are we understaffed? Is all the work being done by one person? What's happening? So the next question I want to do is, what's the average time it takes to resolve these incidents? So you can see it goes through, it's grabbing this information, and it's showing me that, 7 days, 6 days, 2 days, 3 days, 1 day. So it's looking wonderful. I'm going, oh, this is great. But now I might want to go back and look at a different period of time and say, okay, tell me what happened in another month. I want to compare it and let me know, am I improving or not? Is this employee doing the same? They're doing better? They're doing worse? Well, what's happening? So when I go take a look at a different month, it's telling me, hey, in this month, it took like 34 days, 23 days, 16 days.
Yeah.
But looking at it now, it's only taking about average of 2 days. So they're improving. So maybe something was happening in the past, and now maybe new things that we've implemented are actually working, and things are working better.
Wow. Yeah. A bummer we can't look into the future, right? And say, hey, so how is it going to look like in a month?
Yes, that's true. Now, the nice thing about this, and this is something that surprised me, was we did this analysis on one person. And I want to try to look at another person and say, can you take that same analysis and do that same analysis for another person? And all I asked was, hey, can you please do the same analysis you did for Antoine to see for another individual in the organization? And when I do that, immediately it did the results. And it says, on average, in the last 30 days, it takes about 1 day. So comparing this average time of 2 days in the last 30 days, it appears that both analysts are performing at a similar level in terms of incident resolution time. But it doesn't have enough information to pinpoint if anything else. But that analysis that we just walked through and did with a simple question was now applied to somebody else. And this could be a conversation that the CISO generally has, like, okay, you did it for this one, compare it to this one.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
I have that power in my own fingertips to be able to do that.
Wow. What are some other examples of what a CISO? I like that I'm new, and how are we doing? How are we staffed? How are we? I don't know. So just getting a better understanding of the environment or like the threats happening and the analysts.
Yeah,
I'm sure you brought some other examples.
I did. So let's now drill into an incident. So this incident, 26530, a human operated ransomware attack.
Mm-hmm.
That's where somebody is in the organization and they're doing the attack and there's hands on keyboards. Sometimes very difficult to detect because it's an actual person running the scripts. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so I'm going to come down here and I'm going to tell it, hey, for the Defender incident 26530, provide a summary, the user that was involved, and any related intel profiles that maybe a threat actor might have.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when I run that query now, let's see what happens. Let's look at the information. Now, in order for you to get this information, you might need one or more people to go through and analyze and let you know what's happening. But Copilot can look at the instance side of Defender, get a summary of what happened, and understand from all of the alerts that are contained in that single incident, the MITRE attack of what occurred and all the intricate details of that. And now when we take a look at this was a high severity incident that contained 70 alerts. And here is some of the alert information. There was a high severity alert with potential human operated malicious activity. It was on Park City V. Okay. There was a IP address associated with this. Manatee Tempest. So that's a threat actor group that was associated with this. And then we get this nice summary. High severity incident, human operated ransomware attack was launched from a compromised asset. And when it occurred, the attack disruption has stopped the attack. So that means the attack didn't progress. It was contained. It was only on one machine, but it occurred. There was also a Windows 10 S machine involved where a PowerShell script was run.
So we want to know more about that PowerShell script.
Where we want more to know about everything. So let's go through and let's grab the indicators and let's see, from that script, for example, that you mentioned, what were any indicators that were associated with it? Like who did it, like who was interacting with it, what commands did it run? We want to extract the asset information to understand who was involved in this. So I'm going to run this now and we'll see who's involved.
Do we know, I see an Azure icon, so do we know from what is the answer coming?
Where the answer is coming from?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So when we take a look at this, we can actually understand what happened and where this information actually came from. So this came from looking at Defender. So this actually was a Defender skill where it actually went in and grabbed it directly from Defender, this information. Okay, so now the next thing is the CISO might want to understand one of his employees. Who's Jonathan? Who is he in my organization? Now, when we submit this, we'll understand about Jonathan. So this is going out to Entra. It's grabbing that identity information. So then the CISO can have a full understanding. So Jonathan's an account executive. So I go, oh, wait, that's important. If he's an account exec, he touches things that might be sensitive. Did anything get downloaded?
Mm-hmm.
I know we have Purview, and I want to understand, hey, look at Purview and let me know, did Jonathan download any files? Because he was attacked. And I can now ask that question like I would ask to my employees.
What information has been, grabbed? Yeah.
Yeah. So with that, I can see that no external downloads, no downloads occurred. So I go, woo, well, okay, thank you. I don't have to worry about that. So now that I know that Jonathan's okay, but I want to look at his machine. I want to understand what's happening on the machine. So I want to know if the computer is compliant. So when I go through now and I ask this, it's going out to Intune. It's asking Intune about our compliance policies. And it says, hey, there are 8 compliance policies applicable, but without specific information of the status of these policies, it's not possible to tell you if they're compliant or not. So it's telling me, hey, we know that there's 8 policies, but I don't know if it's really compliant or not. You have to go out there and check yourself. Mm-hmm. So if I was a CISO and I go, okay,
how do I do that?
How do I do it? So I asked that question, how would someone check these policies? Can you please give me step-by-steps to do so?
Oh, okay.
And, sure enough, it's gone through, and it's going to give me something that I was amazed with, going, wow, I can just click here and I can go immediately into it and understand how to do that.
Wow.
So with a single click, I can open up the terminal and actually go there.
Okay, that's great. So I think I like it. So it's basically a combination of going out on the internet in the search machine and search for documentation, how something is being done.
Yeah.
But then also related to that organization. That's awesome.
So the last step would be, I'm not familiar with Manatee Tempest. I want to
That was the
understand.
threat actor, right? That
Correct.
was. Mhm.
Correct. So the next thing is, okay, tell me about Manatee Tempest. What are the tactics, techniques, and procedures they're using? And then what are they exploiting? Do I have any other holes in my environment that they might want to get through? So if I go through now and I investigate this is now going to bring in the Microsoft Defender threat intelligence information or threat analytics information. And so with that, this comes for free. So when you get Copilot, you get this information as well. So there's over 78 trillion signals a day that we're processing. And with that information, we understand, not only, what we see from having so many customers, but also we're scanning the internet. We know where everything is, what's installed, what's running. And that threat intelligence is used to understand where the threat actors are and what they're doing. So inside of here, I can understand about Manatee Tempest and what they're doing to gain access, what the organization should do to protect themselves from vulnerabilities. Now, I can also go directly from here, directly into the threat intelligence with a single click. So now I'm going to go and look at those threat profiles. So if I click on this will automatically launch Defender and take me right into the Intel profile for this threat actor. Now you can see I'm looking at Manatee Tempest. I get a nice snapshot of what they are, some reference articles. I can get detailed information about their tactics, techniques, and procedures, and also some indicators of what's out there and what's occurring. And it just happens that this domain was the domain that was in the script that was part of this. And so that linkage is there.
But now I think, we ask a lot of questions. And I think the CISO, they got a lot of answers.
Correct.
Can we wrap this up into like a nice, give me everything together and print it?
Well, think of it this way. Now that we have all this information, I need to put it into context. And maybe I have to report to my board of directors, like the state of the organization. How are we doing? And with like some CISOs have multinational boards of directors. So what I've asked here is, I'd like to you to summarize all this information that we have for a non-technical audience, because this so far has been very technical. And I want you to give me in English, Spanish, German, French, Italian, and Japanese. Write this report. So when I go through now and I create this, Copilot will go out, summarize the information, and make several versions of me so I can give everybody their own version in their own native language. And so if we take a look at this, it says, Dear Board of Directors, at the current time, our organization is dealing with a total of 2630 active incidents. These incidents range from medium to high severity involving various threats. This is really nice. And
I read the German version and it aligns to the English version.
Right. So it's really good. But when you go in front of a board of directors, they're going to have other questions. They might want to know some detail. You might have somebody that has some technical skills on there. So what I like to do now is to create a detailed report. And then the next thing they always ask is, what's the plan going forward? What's our 90-day plan? So this will give us the capability now to take all that information and say, now give me a detailed report of what's happening and give me the 90-day plan that we should be following to protect the organization going forward.
Wow.
And
wow. So now we look into the future. See, you didn't say anything before when I made the comment about looking forward. There we go.
You're absolutely right. So this is the power of Copilot. And you don't have to be an expert to use it to get expert advice. So the CISO, if they want to go in and ask questions, just like they would do with their staff, or in the middle of the night without having to wake somebody up, they can do so and get that information quickly. And
Yeah,
then,
this is so powerful, Benjamin, because you just ask questions as you would ask them a person, right? I mean, you were even polite. Can you please? I do the same.
right.
You don't need KQL
No,
knowledge. You don't have
no.
to do any queries. Uh, this is so powerful, and you can just, keep asking questions that come to your mind that might
Yeah.
be of interest of you. Yeah. Yeah.
The beauty of this is that it puts the power of all of those products and all of the knowledge of those staff with you to give, to ask questions and get better context of a situation,
Wow.
or to know what questions to ask ongoing to your staff.
Yeah, yeah. So we basically now, Benjamin showed a few examples, or you showed a few examples of one incident. There is probably a lot of different questions that a CISO might have in their heads and want to ask someone for answers. So we basically now encourage them to get their hands also dirty on Copilot for security and give it a shot, right?
Yeah, don't be afraid. Jump in, ask questions. You're not going to break anything, and you're going to get information that might help you, in a faster time frame, or
Hmm.
to give you the knowledge and context that you need to ask the real question you might be needing to ask of your staff.
Yeah, and we talked about the Microsoft products, but of course there is plugins, custom plugins where they can connect to other third-party applications and receive data information from these sources as well. I just want to mention this here in this specific episode as well.
And even knowledge bases that you can put in your own knowledge bases to go against that data.
Yes. I think, Benjamin, that's a wrap. It was a lot of amazing content that you shared with me and the audience. Thank you so much for preparing. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode. And I hope I will see you again on my show with maybe a different topic and a different demo, Benjamin.
I would love to come back anytime you want me. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you. And then thanks everyone for watching and see you soon. Bye.